I craved fame and attention as a teenager, but this period really showed me what I was craving all these years: community and acceptance. By investing heavily into the community at the for profit music school, the DC music scene with my band, and my Berkeley online classes, I was making friends and creating relationships that didn't just advance my career, but taught me new things and built a strong sense of confidence moving forward. To date, I am a coach, I'm a performer, I'm a musician, and I'm a leader. I can do these things really well, and I can make the world a better place by doing these things. Welcome to the Strums to Stage podcast. I'm Andrew Wink, founder of Strums to Stage. In this episode, we're going to dive into my journey from a shy 14-year-old learning pop punk songs on guitar in his bedroom to a professional musician, educator, and entrepreneur. I'm going to format this podcast a little bit differently, and we're going to split it up into 4 key points or turning points in my life, and we're going to build them around the 4 phases of learning: unconscious unknowing, conscious unknowing, conscious knowing, and unconscious knowing. This doesn't mean that I've learned everything, but this is the best part of the journey. I'm just getting started. Before we jump in, don't forget to press the subscribe or follow button. We release new videos every Wednesday on our YouTube channel, and we're beginning this podcast, and we're going to start with 1 episode per month across all streaming platforms. Now, we're going to begin with the first phase of learning, and that's unconscious unknowing. Unconscious unknowing is the stage at the very beginning, and a good comparison for that stage is ignorant is bliss. This is the point of the stage where you don't realize the concept or problem exists depending on what you're learning it, making it a good first stop in our journey. As a kid, I really struggled in school. When I was 3, I was diagnosed I was on the autism spectrum, and that was a new challenge for everyone at the time. This was the late 90s, so autism was really just becoming a word in the medical community. So my parents and my family did the best we can around with it. I am very grateful to have parents who supported me as best they knew how in that community, and we all really just went along with the punches. We kind of went and see how it went along. But my family life, I got the support, and they did everything they knew how to work with it as best I could. In school, didn't quite feel that same support. I had a harder time connecting with people and making friends, so I turned out to be a bit of a loner, and particularly in middle school and early high school. And I really struggled with who I was, who I wanted to be when I grew up, and how I can really impact the world around me. And like I said, I have family across the board, not just my parents, who really supported me through all this and continue to support me to this day. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention a handful of family friends that I had during this time as well. We would meet up a couple times a year. When we're together, it was super tight, but it wasn't nearly as often. So it was a struggle to stay upbeat when I was at school and they weren't around. But those friendships were and continue to be very strong, and it really does feel like no time has passed every time we see them. So in hindsight, I had a really strong support system through all of this to help me navigate these challenges that came with just being a kid on the autism spectrum. But it was hard to feel like that at the time. But one thing that did bring me joy through all of this was music. My family had music everywhere. My mom would have music playing over a recording while we were falling asleep. And whenever we were at social gatherings, we would always have some kind of music playing. My parents and their friends grew up in the 80s and were really big into rock music. So there was a lot of Bruce Springsteen. It was mostly jam bands and rock music kind of sound. So guitars, really energetic, really fun stuff. And even music like popped up in the 90s. Like we had a lot of Counting Crows and Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was a lot of really, really cool stuff playing around. And that really resonated with me. I just enjoyed listening to it and being around music. My first we'll call it musical awakening. So first music obsession that was unique to me that I didn't get from my parents was Green Day's album American Idiot when that dropped. I was about 9 or 10 when it dropped in 2004, and the songs were everywhere on the radio, and their music videos were playing on TV as well. And every time they came on, I was like stopped and really, really took it all in. Holiday, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, the title track American Idiot. These were the first songs and really music that was like made me go, wow, this is awesome. This is really, really cool. So that fueled a deeper dive into exploring more pop punk and really energetic rock songs from the 2000s that were popping up. Blink-182, Sum 41, Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, that kind of vibe. And a lot of them was really, really fun. A second musical awakening was another staple from the 2000s and 2010s, and that's Guitar Hero. We had two versions of the game that really, really stuck out to me. We got Guitar Hero World Tour, which had a good mix of songs, and that was fun to play around with my brothers. About 6 months later, maybe it wasn't 6 months, but sometime later, we got Guitar Hero Metallica, and that opened up a whole new world for me. I absolutely ate that game up. I played every Metallica song that was on there, deepening my connection with their music and really getting an introduction into heavy metal bands. A couple bands that had songs on there were Slayer and Machine Head, and I absolutely love that game. So I was about 12 or 13 when that game came up. So all this interest in music, all this guitar heavy stuff. My parents saw this interest in rock music. So for my 14th birthday, they got me my first guitar. It was a beginner electric guitar set called a Starcaster that had everything you needed in it. The guitar, the amp, the cable, just everything you need, a guitarist needed to get started. So when I opened up that box that night, I sat down and just had the guitar seated on my leg, having absolutely no clue what to do with it at that point. But there was a feeling that it felt right. It's kind of like that line from Jukebox Hero by Survivor. The main character of the song, he just had one guitar, didn't know how to play it, but he knew for sure it felt good in his hands. Absolute paraphrase for it, but that was kind of the feel. It's like, okay, this is awesome. This is cool. This is a really, really good feeling. I still have the guitar to this day, and for my video friends, I'm holding the guitar up, trying to get it in screen. It's the body is a black and red guitar. It's a black body with a red pick guard. So essentially it's the part on the front. And then it's got a black headstock that I have as well, which was unique to the Starcaster. The guitar looked very different when we first got it. It was a white pick guard with some different pickups. I upgraded it at one point, so now it looks and sounds very different than it did when I was 14, just like me. So tying this all back to the first stage of learning, all this was an awakening of what could be. I couldn't articulate it very well at a time, but I had a pain point for not being seen or not being accepted by my peers in school. I desperately wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be accepted, part of a community that valued what I had to offer and wanted to feel complete, wanted to be seen, and wanted to be accepted. Becoming a musician seemed like a great way to become popular, particularly for my teenage mind at the time, which was the goal at the time. And I had this vision or thought that, like, after everyone learned I got a guitar, I thought everything would change overnight. I'd become Mr. Popular, I'd get all the babes, I'd be famous and this and that and da-da-da. But do you know what changed the first day after I got the guitar? Diddly squat. Nothing changed. Everyone treated me the exact same way the next day after I got the guitar than they had the day before I had the guitar. The only thing that did change at the time was I had something to do when I went back home besides surfing on the web or whatever else. But that doesn't mean that change didn't happen. This was the first step in my musical journey, and every single journey requires more than one step. Some require 2, some require 2,000, 2 million. It's all steps in the right direction. So let's talk through a handful of those steps, and we're going to move into phase 2 of our learning, our second stage of learning, which is conscious unknowing. This stage marks the spot from what do I do next to I'm working on it. So this is kind of this is a section, you know what you don't know and what to work on next. So this marks kind of the first steps. And this is still a period of discovery. This part of navigating and just being a loner in school really continued through the end of my sophomore year. So junior year, being the second half of high school, I transferred to a new school, and it was a fresh start that I really needed at the time. At the suggestion of an amazing guidance counselor, I got involved in the theater department, which was something I hadn't really considered getting into at the time. I got involved in a theater summer camp with students from the high school attending, and made some friends before the school year started, which was great. And then when the school year began, I got involved with the theater department on the tech side. So I was backstage building sets and moving set pieces in between scenes while the actors were on stage doing their thing. I also did a guitar and band class and met a group of about 3 or 4 others who were in the same track, and we connected just over playing music and playing guitar. Just got to talk, got to know each other. And this was my first taste of making friends and connecting with them authentically. I wasn't trying to be anyone else or push them away. It was easier for me to open up to that group. One of my family friends, the previous family friends, was at this school. So it was just much easier for me to open up in general and really integrate in that community than I had prior to that, which was absolutely awesome. And it was amazing making connections on a deeper level than what I felt I had before. The school also had a talent show every year, and this was my first taste of performing on stage with the guitar. I'm the oldest of 3 brothers, and the first year, the middle brother and I played Damn It by Blink-182 for the show. It was really just the 2 of us on guitar and both of us singing, or at least attempting to sing as best we knew how at the time. We tried our best, and I'm sure it was okay for a 14-year-old and 16-year-old who kind of knew how to play their instruments. We actually talked about that show recently, my brother and I, and he remembered feeling very self-conscious about it the next day. I don't remember feeling as self-conscious. I think that's because I realized people were moved on pretty quickly from it. So that tells me that either we didn't suck too badly, we didn't suck so badly that people were making fun of us, or that people at the school were a lot nicer and supportive than I thought. So could be a bit of both. But then the next year, which was my senior year, we tried it again, but brought in our childhood friends because he wanted to jump in and perform. So the friend and I played guitar, and we both sang for that song, and then my brother played bass. So we needed a drummer at this point. So all we needed for our band was a drummer. And our youngest brother played drums, but he was an 8th grader. So we asked the school if he could play, and they were like, yeah, sure. So we had our 4-person band, and we were so excited for it. We decided on Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi because it was a crowd pleaser. It was a song that I had learned the guitar riff ahead of time and had a very singable chorus at the end to get the audience to sing along with us. And that show was incredible. The energy flowing between all 4 of us on stage was amazing, and we got the whole audience singing the chorus at the end of the tune, and we even won an award for it. That was the first year the school introduced a Spirit Award, which they gave to the act that was the most engaged or had the best spirit, and we brought the house down. We had the whole auditorium singing the chorus for Living on a Prayer, which that was incredible. So we won the first Spirit Award, and I have the trophy somewhere. But that was an amazing experience, and one that I greatly enjoyed reminiscing with my family as well. We were all just on cloud 9 at the end of the show, and that remains one of my favorite memories. So all this inspired the thought, hey, this music thing is kind of really cool, and I want to keep doing it after high school. Because when college came around, I had visited a handful of schools, but I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to explore music and the arts and see how that all fit in. So I ended up finding Washington College, which is a very small liberal arts school in Maryland. It was a school that didn't require a formal audition to get into the music program, which was great because I had played guitar on and off and took a couple of lessons. I was never involved with a jazz band or whatnot, so my theory and instructional skills were not quite up to snuff, and I would have been. There even were a couple of colleges where I was like, okay, maybe attend for a semester or two, and then audition to get into the program a little bit later, which would have been tough. My thinking for why this was set up was because Washington College is such a liberal arts school, and the graduation requirements were all over the place. Some science, some math, some performance arts, all of this and whatnot. So I think they wanted to make it a little bit more inclusive. But that did not diminish the quality of players that were involved in that community. It was all classically driven. There was a jazz band. There were some there were choir chambers. There was a lot of the traditional music ensembles that you'd have in the group. But there was also a steel pan ensemble that I played in that was a lot of fun. And it was just a really cool way to expand my horizons and meet new people, and a lot of very talented musicians in that group across all walks of life. So I went to the university expecting to be involved in the music program in some way, but I also found my way into the theater program very early on. I knew I enjoyed theater in high school. I would be open to continuing with it, but I wasn't sure as much. But I ended up signing up for I forget what the actual class name was, but it was some freshman requirement that was theater themed. So all the students in that class were put together in a peer group and had a peer mentor for the first week of college to just get us acclimated and introduce us to each other, all that good stuff. My peer mentor was a senior theater major, and she was working on a production for another senior's final project or production, also called a thesis. The theater thesis was really unique to that school in that you're in charge of putting on your own show. You produce a play as well as take on one of three other super significant roles. You're a director, you're a playwright, so you write and produce your own play, or you are the lead actor for the show. There was, I think, one or two other avenues, but these are the three most common. And by far, the most common was the director route. That was what the vast majority of students, the path that they took. There was maybe 4 or 5 students that did either playwriting or acting in my experience. So my peer mentor was the stage manager for this production. So she was in charge of handling logistics, scheduling rehearsals, and all that stuff. And she was looking for an assistant stage director. She was looking for someone to help her out. And I was like, hey, I'm interested. I want to try this out and see where this goes. And then the production took place, and I had an absolute blast working on it. I met a number of new friends, both through the production and then just in the theater department, many of whom stayed good friends during my time at undergrad, and I felt a really strong connection with the new community. I also found another friend group of several people from different walks of life. We were all different majors, different ages. We came from different places, but we all had similar interests around board games, some music, but we mainly would just all sit down together and got to know each other during lunch. And we all just really clicked even deeper than that. We all just really connected over little things. And yeah, those friends are the ones that remain friends to this day. We try to meet up once or twice a year. Actually, probably more than that, as often as we can, which gets tough. But I had found the connection and community that I had craved so many years earlier, and I was finding it under a direction of like going to art. Let's see where this goes. So it was all headed under one direction. By the time my senior thesis came around, I had decided to do a project combining a playwriting thesis to satisfy the theater degree and a music composition thesis for my music major. So put them together. In other words, I wrote a musical. The performance was a staged reading of 11 actors and singers and a 4-piece rock band. We had a pianist, a guitarist, a bassist, and a drummer. The metalhead that I wrote the songs with a 7-string guitar and a 6-string bass because I had those instruments and we had tuned down to drop A. Very unusual for guitarists, and I had a really difficult time finding a guitar player to play it. It was my job to simultaneously update the script and music and make sure the production was still on schedule and on budget, which budget-wise was pretty easy to do for a staged reading, where all we really needed was folding chairs, music stands, and then musical instruments for the bandmates, which a lot of that came from the music department. I love talking about the production aspects of the musical because it was a really cool undertaking. But I hate talking about the story of the show or the story that inspired the narrative. It was inspired by a friend, a dear friend in my community at home, not part of the college. He had passed away a couple of weeks after I newly lost a family member, and suicide was involved in both of them. Obviously, one survived and one didn't. And for the musical, I adapted my experience of it to share my side as the repercussions, but I kept it way close to home, incorporated details that was not the best informed, and people who were close to the original story got hurt. And upon reflection, the subject matter was just way too raw and fresh to tell a compelling story, because the incident happened a little over 2 years before the actual production came to life. And I had spent about 6 to 9 months grieving. Deadlines for the thesis started to come, so that was like, this is a powerful story and I want to share it with the world. But I just don't love talking about it because of the weight of the initial story, the subject matter of the play, and then an impact it had on some people. It makes it, but it happened. So that aside, there was some good feedback that came out of it. I got a lot of really good feedback about the music and how everything came together on the production side. So the thesis did exactly what I needed to do, which was satisfying the requirement to get my diploma. And I haven't thought very much about it, or I haven't really done anything with it since, which is pretty common among theater majors. It was awesome to say that I did a musical, but given the experience and how heavy it weighs, I tend not to talk about it very much. So during my whole college experience, and even up to graduation, I was doing my best to get involved in the music scene and play in bands. So one of my college friends played in a band during our freshman year of college, and I saw his band perform a handful of times and hung out with them while they recorded an EP and even recorded my first original guitar solo on one of these tunes. I met a lot of their friends and other people in the scene and had a lot of fun with them in those days, and even a number of them I see from time to time as well. My first full-time band, or band that I was playing with regularly, was a hard rock band that was based in Virginia, and I played bass with them for about 18 months between sophomore and junior year. I found them online, and I liked demos that they had previously released and they were working on. The challenge was just Washington College is in Maryland, and they were rehearsing in Virginia, so it's about a 2-hour drive to make it down to rehearsals. But I felt passionate about the music. I really liked the people that I was playing with. The trek was worth it. Considering we were going down on Sunday evenings for rehearsals, it was relatively manageable, all things considered. And it was a really good learning experience of how to work with bandmates and how to connect with people. And like I said, they were great people. They were really, really fun to work with. So I left that band to focus on my thesis. And then after I finished the thesis and right before graduating, I joined a band on bass for a pop punk band. We were a 3-piece. We had a singer who was playing guitar and a drummer to tie it all together. We had our first gig the day after graduation. So I ended up attending the graduation ceremony Saturday morning, had a great lunch with my family afterwards, and then drove straight to southeast of DC in the Waldorf area for rehearsal. So it was a long drive those couple of days. And then we had the show in Baltimore the next day. So the logistics for this band was involved. The drummer lived in Waldorf, the singer lived north of Baltimore, and was working the summer in Delaware. So I was commuting about 3 hours every Sunday to band practice, and everyone was commuting quite a bit as well. So we would turn it into a whole day thing. Sunday morning, we would come in at about 10 a.m., rehearse for 2 or 3 hours, whether that's songwriting or tightening up a set for a show the next weekend or whenever that was. Have a lunch break in between to just chillax and hang out, and then have another rehearsal to usually run the set, maybe a little bit of songwriting as well, depending on what was going on. And we accomplished a lot in those days, and we got super tight both personally and performance-wise together, so it was amazing to get there. During the good times we had in the band, we felt like we were hot shit. We were on top of the world. We were super talented, feeling that we were more so than everybody else. So we were silently a little arrogant, I will say. But we had different visions for what we wanted to do with the band. And eventually there was a schism that formed between the singer and then the drummer and I. So we ended up parting ways. The drummer and I left and tried our own project for a little while, but there was a rift in between. There's some drama between the drummer and I as well. And then that band fell apart. I go to the drummer's house to pick up my gear that I'd stashed there. It was I believe it was a PA system. There was an amp. There was a mixer. There was a handful of things there that I needed to be. Not all of it. Some of it relatively expensive. And then I drive up to the drummer's house, and there's all the gear sitting outside of his house at the top of his driveway. I was crushed. I pulled the car, stopped it just in front of it, and I was like, oh no. What? Because he had just left this stuff out and didn't want to talk to me. But the second part of that, I didn't quite gather. I was like, are we cool? What's going on, man? So I walked to he had a back door down to his basement, which is how we usually entered the house. And he was just sitting there noodling his guitar. I knocked and was like, yo, are you sure we're cool? And he was like, yeah, sure. And just didn't say much about it. And then I ended up walking back, loading up the gear into my car. He kind of came out and then helped me pack up anyway. And we chatted a little bit, but that marked the end of that friendship. I later found out, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, that he and the singer made up, got back and reformed the band with a couple of new members from the new project, and they never told me. They completely cut me out. We had some pictures on social media that I was in. Those were completely gone. They just basically wiped me off of that band, which at the time was devastating. I just felt so unworthy. I was like, where did I go wrong? Am I really that bad at this whole band thing? So I needed to take a break from music. I got a job working in corporate AV and just put my head down and got into that for a little while as I put myself back together. And then about 6 to 9 months later, I dove back into music and found my way to a couple of really cool projects. There was a metal band that was fun at the time, but didn't really go anywhere. And then there was a singer-songwriter who had been playing by herself for some time and was opening up to having a backup band. They were both departures from my previous work, so it was nice to learn something new. And I also changed from bass to lead guitar, so it was a new challenge of playing new parts, adding something unique to the music besides just playing the rhythm chords or whatnot. Both of those were really cool challenges for me, but it was particularly special with the singer-songwriter that she let me give her input. I'm grateful for the adventures that I had with these bands, and I learned a lot about myself and how to work with musicians. It was a period of discovery, kind of like dating in a sense. You're meeting new people, you're forming relationships. Some may not get off the ground at all. Some may not go beyond the first date, and some go on for a while and can get pretty messy. but you learn a lot about yourself, you learn a lot about the people you work with, and you become better for the next band or project that comes around. And as hard as some of these projects were and as difficult as some of the challenges I faced were, I am really grateful that I had them because that was an immersion into my musical experience and those first handful of steps of learning that experience. Now we enter stage 3 of learning, which is conscious knowing. At this stage, I know things, and I'm working to get better. So that this period for me, this is where things started to make a lot more sense. A lot of those first steps were becoming second nature. So it was like, okay, I've tackled this part before, maybe to go to the next bit, and all just built on top of each other. And I was able to apply a lot of what I had learned and began seeing significant progress here, which is good because this time chronologically, my life and everybody else's for that matter was about to go through a pretty big change. So at this point, I was working with the corporate AV company doing event productions and playing in 2 bands on the side. I had the singer-songwriter, and then the drummer for that band had opened up his own creative endeavor and started a band. So that was pretty cool. Both of those involved a lot of mass gatherings. For the AV job, we were working at galas, conferences, big events that required a lot of people there. And then for the band, we weren't playing big shows, but it was still a mass gathering. It was people coming in to see our show and rock with us. So when the dreaded COVID-19 virus hit and social distancing restrictions were enforced in March of 2020, events were being canceled left and right at work. And there was just a lot of uncertainty of what was going to happen next. So the owner of the company had sat everyone down and said, we need to put everyone on furlough for at least 2 weeks until we get clarity on what will happen next. So for those unaware, furlough is a temporary unpaid leave from work due to a work shortage or economic conditions, which is exactly what happened here. This is essentially a step above layoffs, as it is thought to be temporary and there's the intention to bring people back. But there wasn't a whole lot of comfort in that statement because we really had no idea what was going to happen. The restrictions naturally impacted music events, so I had no way of making any kind of money in either lines of work, whether it's playing shows or working events, because events just aren't happening. They were gone. So my passion for playing live was a dumpster fire, and my current skills and expertise in event production were also in flames because the work is gone. Questions kept flooding my mind for the first week or so. What do I do next? What the hell do I do in this madness? And how am I going to make rent? Then a thought came to mind. What about teaching? Previously, I had fallen into the false belief that those who don't do teach, or the idea that teachers are aspiring stars who have tried and failed to be successful. Boy, was I full of shit. That is not the case at all. Some of the music teachers that I know are the best musicians I've ever come across, and all of them are still on their musical journey. Their journey wasn't ending, rather they were keeping their goals alive by teaching what they've learned to make a living and learn even more along the way. Some of the best musicians I've ever come across are amazing teachers. So I landed a job at a for-profit music school that was opening up for the first time. I got to grow with the school, learning the ins and outs about how they operated, and worked with a cohort of incredibly talented instructors. So I made some friends with them and learned a lot along the way about just how music works. And I even became the music director, essentially the programming director for this school. During all this, I got the privilege to teach incredible students of all walks of life, from kids as young as 5 years old up to adults my age and even those who've retired, and got to bring all these people together and show them the way to take their own musical journeys, whether that's learning an instrument. And a couple of them have even gone on to form their own bands and play out in the scene with us. So it turns out I was pretty good as an instructor. I've been told that I'm a patient, caring, and detail-oriented guy, and this tends to work really, really well with private instructors. I even recently ran into a couple of former students at rehearsal after I left the for-profit music school. They came out of their way at the end of their rehearsal to say hello. They were all happy and smiling. They were excited for a performance they were playing at that weekend. And I saw that I made a positive impact on their lives. I can feel good about what I accomplished at that school and what I brought to every student that I had. One of the benefits of working at the school at the time was they opened their spaces to instructors to rehearse after business hours. So there's at least 2 or 3 different projects where we would go in and rehearse at the end of the day. And it was amazing to have that and not have to pay for rent and not have to rent a rehearsal space. So one day, one of the other instructors, who was a voice instructor, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I'm meeting up with this guy for a jam session," or maybe it was a recording session. My memory says recording session, it's differently, but that's what I thought. Anyway, it was a session. Would you be willing to try out on bass? And I'm like, sure, let's try it out. That conversation sparked a nearly 4-year journey with my current band, Grimm, and it is by far the most fulfilling project I've had to date. We've released multiple recordings on the internet, songs that I have actively written, not just added my own ideas to someone else's songs. We've played amazing shows in Washington, D.C. and beyond. And I have had so many experiences that I was looking for so many years ago. It's also a really good playing ground for me to focus on the business side of music. How do you book shows? How do you do this? This is what I want to get into, and it has taken off in a big way, and we're just getting started. This really just shows that all the previous headaches and heartaches have been worth it because it's led me here. Between building a band and working as a guitar instructor, I was having a lot of fun, but I also wanted more. A big question that kept popping into my head was, how do I make a sustainable income in this industry? How do I bring in more so I can keep growing in this space and not have to half-ass a job somewhere else? I determined that continuing my education with a master's degree would be the next step. I found Berklee Online's Master of Music Business and found that it was a really, really good way to find the answers to these questions. It also was a great opportunity to expand my network, and doing it all without having to step away from a job and take out student loans to live was perfect. That was exactly what I was looking for. Through the program, which I graduated in December of 2024, I learned a lot more about how the music industry works. I met more amazing people, and I gained a pretty strong degree of confidence in going into the music industry. I shared before that I craved fame and attention as a teenager, but this period really showed me what I was craving all these years: community and acceptance. By investing heavily into the community at the for-profit music school, the DC music scene with my band, and my Berklee Online classes, I was making friends and creating relationships that didn't just advance my career, but taught me new things and built a strong sense of confidence moving forward. To date, I am a coach, I'm a performer, I'm a musician, and I'm a leader. I can do these things really well, and I can make the world a better place by doing these things. And those thoughts drive me directly into stage number 4, unconscious knowing. In this stage, things become essentially second nature. At this point for me, many of the musical concepts and beginner band management relationship concepts are at this stage, such as how to play certain guitar chords and how to plan a recording session. All of this stuff is nearly second nature and opens up my brain to learn more journeys, such as starting my own business, Strums to Stage. The first iteration of Strums to Stage was my final project for Berklee, or called the Culminating Experience. The final project was a business plan for an online music education program, which revolved around an online community with video courses and supplemental one-on-one lessons for learning guitar. The vision was that it would bring like-minded musicians together so they could learn from each other, as well as designated coaches and mentors, and celebrate each other's wins at any time of the day. A flaw that I noticed with the for-profit music school, value was directly tied to money. Essentially, as a student, you would pay for 4 lessons that you would have to manage your schedule, set a time for it, and then come in at that time regularly, which some students really, really struggled with that. An idea with an online business or with an online community is you can accomplish a lot of the same things and learn material directly through a community that's not necessarily linked to time unless you want it to be. So you can direct message the coaches to ask questions. You can post videos and share it back and forth, and it doesn't need to be directly tied to time. This is what I presented as my final project and kind of circling back to teaching guitar. But even as I was putting the presentation together, I was thinking there are so many businesses that offer guitar lessons, but what I really needed coming into the music industry was someone to bounce ideas with when these challenges outside of my instrument came up. How do I begin recording my own music? How do I put my own show together? All these other questions existed, and while I found the information I was looking for, it would have been a lot smoother with a community of other people doing the same thing. There are record labels and there are other services that do it like this, but many of them need to see a degree of success from the artists. Going deeper than that, my life has transformed in a big way because I found a passion in music and found people who are just as passionate about art as I am. Both of these points motivated me to follow this path relentlessly and keep going in the same direction. It has led to different challenges, but I has also led to a confidence and vision that continues to evolve with each significant change in my life and in this business. A saying that a handful of my peers in the theater department have shared was, art mimics life. Art, including theater and music, is created from the life experiences of the artist. Every artist has their influences. Musicians have their top bands or people that have significantly impacted their life and their craft and inspired them to create music. These musicians pull from different influences and experiences and create something unique to them and share this work with their audience for them to create new experiences. Some examples of this are songs that inspire nostalgia. The song you had your first kiss to, the song you listened to after you learned a friend passed away, or the song that was played during your first dance with your spouse. This powerful emotion drives this cycle of artist to music and then music to artist. It just continues feeding into each other, and that is amazing to see. But what happens if the audience member becomes inspired but never does and breaks that cycle? What if the dream of creating music and trying something new goes unfulfilled because they fear judgment from others? It may not seem like a significant event to become an artist, learn an instrument, recording, or whatnot. And not everyone needs to follow the road to the professional level, but it could be an indicator of a bigger issue. If making music is something you really want to do, I have a question for you. Why haven't you started? Truthfully, the answer to that question is not nearly as important as the answer for this follow-up question. How would you feel if 10 years from now you were in the same place? Do you feel honest about the answer you just gave? If that answer feels right, then great. But if that answer doesn't feel right, why is that? Are there other adventures in your life that you're putting off right now? What are you gaining from putting this off? And what do you believe you are missing? I have been on a substantial transformational journey from that shy 14-year-old strumming on the guitar in his bedroom to the 30-year-old smiling every time he plays on stage. I hope to help others find that same change at Strums to Stage for whatever challenges they face, but particularly for those who want to make the jump to become a musician, to go from a player making sounds that you read from a sheet to a performer, a creator, and a leader in their own lives and the communities they will create and serve. To bring people from consumer to producer, to guide artists as they craft their own voice and lead their own journeys. This is the dream of Strums to Stage.